Do you not think conservatives would want to conserve the environment? Conservatives in America are not conservatives. They are billionaire bootlickers, and they are money-worshipping idolaters. May 15th, 2014 on the People's Radio!
The People's Radio is an experimental technocratic media format for the working class. The thoughts and opinions expressed on the People's Radio are not necessarily the thoughts and opinions of Organizing for Humanity, of the People's Radio, or of anyone else. Viewer discretion is advised.
So have you heard the news? The sky is falling. The world is crumbling. There's earthquakes and volcanoes and God's pulling out his cups of wrath and demons are slaying virgins and it's mass hysteria. Dogs and cats living together. Oh wait, no. What actually happened was the NFL actually drafted the very first openly gay player. Now we all know that there's been gay players in the NFL. Come on. I mean, who's joking here? But the NFL has actually drafted their very first openly gay player. And that's not enough to piss off the conservatives. No. You see, what they do normally when they... And I know nothing about the NFL. I do not watch the NFL. I do not watch pro football. I do watch college football, however. What the NFL regularly does is that moment when you find out that, like, oh, you're a millionaire, you're about to make millions of dollars over the next, 5-10 years or whatever. That moment when you find out your destiny as an athlete, where you're going, how much money you're going to make, and where you're going to be living, and basically, raising your family or whatever. It's a very emotional moment. So it's pretty much tradition. ESPN will broadcast that moment when those players find out where they're going. So they broadcast live on national TV. ESPN is national TV. It's cable TV, whatever. And they broadcast that moment of the first openly gay player in the NFL going to the Rams. I know. Let's not joke about the name of the team. Let's watch that moment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Thank you.
What a beautiful moment that was. What a beautiful moment that was. A loving couple just found out their destiny and where they're going, and it was very emotional. And they found out, basically their financial destiny and where they're going to live and what he's going to be doing for the next few years. It's a beautiful moment. And they normally do this, but they just so happen to be gay. So the right wing is having a full-on meltdown.
I want to break down this draft day debacle with Michael Sam. I've got a column up on this topic at our news site, onenewsnow.com, and the title of my piece is the NFL's inexcusable lack of compassion for Michael Sam. Now, my point is the NFL is conducting itself in a horribly irresponsible fashion here. They are showing absolutely no compassion for Michael Sam, no genuine compassion. It looks like compassion because they're showering him with favor, showering him with attention, showering him with praise. It all looks wonderful, but there is no genuine compassion here because they are celebrating something that could destroy Michael Sam's life. They know the kind of behavior that Michael Sam is engaged in. He had a big, wet, sloppy kiss with his gay lover right in front of the world and everybody. It was on the top of Drudge for hours yesterday. So everybody knows exactly the kind of behavior he is engaging in, and it is behavior that will destroy his life. And the NFL, rather than warning him, rather than cautioning him, rather than appealing to him for his sake to save his life, is indulging him. They're celebrating something that could wind up being extremely costly to Michael Sam and destroy his life. There is no compassion, I submit, in that whatsoever. NFL should be begging him to pursue reparative therapy in the hopes of saving his life. That is, if the NFL was characterized by genuine compassion rather than this fake ersatz kind that they showed yesterday. Here's my last paragraph in the column. Alas, the only people who truly care for Michael Sam are those who love him enough to tell him the truth about the health risks of homosexual behavior. And that, sadly, does not include the leadership of the NFL. They long ago sold their souls to the virulent, vitriolic bullies and bigots of Big Gay. But here's the tragedy. It will be Michael Sam who pays the price for their soulless cowardice.
That was Brian Fisher, a guy who runs an extremely right-wing, Christian online podcast radio show, whatever. And this guy obsesses more over gay sex than gay people do. And look at his hair. Have you noticed how impeccable his hair is? Have you? I'm getting some tingling. I'm telling you, little gaydar tingling. Maybe going off every time I look at Brian Fisher. Brian Fisher talks more about gay sex than gay people, like, out on the prowl looking for gay sex, talk about gay sex. It's just insanity. The man is not allowed to have a program where he does not mention gay sex. He is absolutely obsessed about it. I mean, right now carbon emissions are like approaching 450 parts per million. The solar activity is currently at one of its lowest points ever. The planet is currently at one of the hottest points ever. The scientists are screaming gloom and doom. We're all going to die. We're all going to die. Please listen to us. And this guy's all like, gay sex, man. Gay sex is gay sex. He just cannot stop talking about it. But he's not the only one. You see, there was these... This is a very traumatic time period for these sorts of people. I have to watch my language. Iowa, of all states, just had an overturn on their gay ban or whatever. And now I'm not a legal expert. They still have to do some fighting left to see if it's going to be stopped or protested by or whatever. But it looks like Idaho is now on the path towards gay marriage. Arkansas, of all places, Arkansas just had a judge overturn the ban on gay marriage. And so now they're fighting it out in the courts, and we're waiting to see what's happening. I mean, it's a domino effect. We are getting closer and closer to equality. We are getting closer and closer to allowing homosexuals to just be left alone and live a normal life like we do. This is very reminiscent of the civil rights movement. It is a civil rights movement for the homosexuals. So... man, the sky is falling. The sky is absolutely falling for these people right now. Here's Brian Fisher again talking about... well, you'll see.
Being a 22-year Air Force veteran, a Vietnam vet, and all of this troubles my soul deeply. I can show you in the Bible, now I'm not a scholar, I can't quote the chapter and verse, but I can show you where God calls homosexuality an abomination, but nobody can show me where God condones that same activity.
Mm-hmm.
Also along the lines in our military, it really, I question sometimes why I spent 22 years protecting what I was protecting when we're willing to stand by and let it be washed away or given away by those in power.
Yeah. Well, Tom, I think a lot of people listen to you, and boy, they understand exactly what you're saying. I mean, America was worth bleeding and dying for because we stood for certain things. We stood for Judeo-Christian morality. We stood for the influence of Christianity and culture. We stood for religious liberty. We stood for freedom. We stood for military strength. We had something that was precious. We had a culture with shared values that we knew was worth protecting, even at the risk of our own lives, even when we had to shed our own blood to defend it. We knew that it was worth defending. And I think a lot of people, I mean, I still think it is, but a lot of people are asking the same question you're asking, Tom. Is this turning into a nation that I really want to risk my life to defend and protect? That's how serious, Tom, 22-year veteran, you just heard him. If you got a 22-year veteran asking that question, we've got a serious cultural problem on our hands.
What fake patriots? What fake... Oh, they hide behind their Constitution, and they talk about how they're patriots, and they love this country so much. No. Let me explain it to you, my listeners. They don't love this country. They love the fact that they've enjoyed what we call white privilege and white majority and a conservative majority for the past 30 years. The Reaganites and the baby boomers sold this country away to the freaking McDonald's and the Walmarts and all the banks and Wall Street. They sold it away 36 years ago, and they've had this white privilege. They weren't allowed to keep the slaves. They weren't allowed to keep the separate black and white restrooms. So now they feel like the world is falling apart. I mean, if we can't discriminate against gay people, what can we do? We're not allowed to discriminate against people. We're not allowed to hate people. This is not my America. This is not the America I want. Oh, the humanity. Screw these people. I am embarrassed. I am embarrassed to consider them fellow citizens of this great nation that was founded on, well, this nation was founded on slavery. But besides that, we've come a long way since then. And the idea of inclusion and equality for all, justice for all, these are things that we recite in our Pledge of Allegiance. Liberty and justice for all. At the base of the Statue of Liberty, it says, "Give me, you're tired, you're poor, you're weary." America was supposed to be a beacon of light. It was supposed to be a place where everybody could come and live the American dream. And they are upset that they're not allowed to hate people anymore.
God versus the devil. The battle is in the spirit. If we get off and we focus on physical, that's why if you say the homosexual community is the enemy and they're doing this, no, it's not the homosexual community. It's God versus the devil. And there's a small minority of people in this world, heterosexual and homosexual, that buy into the idea of this agenda that wants to silence people. We are called to restrain evil that good may flourish.
Yeah, what you just saw was two twins that were trying to get a home and garden television channel show. HGTV show, and they were denied. It was canceled before it even really began because it turns out that they are gay bashers and they hate the gay person. And they talk about how the gay person, you just heard it, it's God versus the devil. We're not talking about human beings here. We're talking about God versus the devil. They're talking about how they hate homosexuals because homosexuals are totally being manipulated by the devil. Yeah, I'm not buying it. Come on, did you see those guys? Gaydar, going off, ringing like a bell. You've got to be kidding me. That, to me, looks like self-loathing gays. We've seen it time and time again. Looks like we're going to continue to see it.
as we think about the future of Watson and we think about how it's going to expand across the marketplace, we see this ecosystem starting to expand, bringing in the creativity of entrepreneurs around the world to start to access Watson through easy-to-use technologies like our cloud. Our developer cloud is going to make it easier for them to get a hold of this technology, to leverage that technology, and to build new solutions that we can't even imagine today.
Watson's relationship with data is a relationship between fuel and engines. It's a relationship between energy and light. Watson needs data to do what it does.
When you start digging into what Watson can do and how it can be applied, the ideas come very quickly in terms of what you can do with it. And there really is, I think, almost no vertical where the solution can't be applied or the technology can't be applied in an innovative way.
Watson, because of its ability to take unstructured data, gives us a very quick way to get our arms around this ever-expanding ecosystem of health improvement programs and line those up for the consumer.
In order for the Watson ecosystem to thrive, you need the ability to connect the idea to the people that can make it happen. And an ecosystem with talent capable of doing that is absolutely vital for its success.
The ecosystem itself is an environment in which more innovation will occur and will help us understand even better how we should be producing content in the future.
Its unique ability to process both structured and unstructured data at vast scale at a very low cost is unparalleled, and we think the industry will move in that direction.
We believe Watson is going to be huge. It's going to be the next big thing after the internet.
Ladies and gentlemen, Solar Roadways is a company that has actually produced an actual working design to really make roads and parking lots solar panels that power our whole freaking country. Think about it. Think about the potential. I mean, this idea has been kicked around since the 80s. If you used to replace all the asphalt, all the roads, all the parking lots, you would have 3 times as much energy as we currently produce with all of our power plants, right? So the idea that solar is not going to work is just ludicrous. The problem, however, up until now is nobody has figured out a way to manufacture them in a cost-effective way so that they're, in a way that can be done and repaired and feasible is the word that I'm looking for. But check it out. These guys have figured out this, it's a hexagonal glass solar panel. And here's the cool thing. They have LED lights embedded inside of them so that they can actually display like messages and they can light up at night. Think about that. You won't even need headlights anymore because the road will just light up. This is great. Now I know it looks like it's fragile, but they have tested it with, 100,000-pound trucks and it holds up just fine. And here's the cool thing. If the roads or the asphalt or the parking lot gets damaged, then they can just pull out one of those, the damaged section, and then just pop in the repair. So instead of having to shut down roads to repave, entire lanes and cause traffic backups, we can now just come in a day and just pop in and out a hexagon, a broken portion of the road, and then it's fixed and it's ready to go. This is an amazing breakthrough. Now, they need to do a production run. They need to finalize the design so that it can be produced for actual, mass manufacturing. So, feel free to go check them out on their Indiegogo page right now. There's Solar Roadways. I think it's a really cool design, and I look forward to seeing where it goes. Speaking of solar, thanks to our friends at Scientific American, highly recommended publication for any of our listeners to read. Antelope Valley Solar Ranch 1 is nearing completion. It's 230 megawatt power solar installation. Congrats, guys. Get that puppy done. Also, the world's largest solar array just got finished. It is the 5 million solar panel Agua Caliente photovoltaic solar power facility. It is operated by, NRG Power. Man, it is huge. Look at it. This thing can power 230,000 homes, generates 290 megawatts of solar power, and it is so freaking smart, right? That not all of the solar panels are working at any given time, because I mean it's receiving so much power, right? You can't just dump all that power onto the grid, because then the grid will be like under the strain of so much solar power, because solar power actually does work, despite the critics, despite what they say, despite the fact that they say that solar power doesn't work. It totally freaking works. It works so well that not all of those solar panels can operate at the same time, because it would overload the grid. It would like surge your house and fry your electronics. So some of them just kind of sit there idle until it's a cloudy day. And then when the sun has diminished and it needs to call on more solar panels to open up and to be all like, we need more light, like a plant opens up its leaves. This solar plant is so smart that it can do that. It can decide how many solar panels are active and drawing energy at any given time, depending on the conditions of the weather. And that's not even the smartest part of it. It's actually manufactured with a new type of photovoltaic cells that use half as much materials. They're half the width. They're more thin. So they're cheaper to make. They're more efficient. And look at that. Look how wonderful that is. Solar power is here. Solar power is here. Those solar plants were built by the help of the government giving them grants. Thank you, Obama. Speaking of your government working for you, $40 million of your tax money has been spent on a DARPA-funded project to make a bionic arm, a prosthetic arm, however you want to pronounce it, right? The FDA is approving this thing right away because, it's government funded, government tested, government approved. So the FDA is all like, sure, this thing is awesome. It is like the most advanced prosthetic arm that we have on the market, and it's modular, which means it can be used on pretty much anyone. If you just lost your hand, they can now replace your hand. If you lost up to your elbow, they can now replace your forearm and your hand. If you lost more than that, up to your shoulder, they can replace that too. It's incredible. We're getting there. We're slowly working our way towards Star Wars. Luke Skywalker with his robotic hand. It's coming, folks. It's coming. No one can stop the progression of mankind. No one can stop science, not even the dumb Republicans. Hey, do you know what researchers in Germany have done? Check this out. They have created a device that they can actually implant into your body to keep your blood pressure down. You see, there are those among us that have high blood pressure problems. My mother is one of those, and she has high blood pressure problems, hypertension, all that stuff, and she has to take medication every day to keep her blood pressure down. Well, guess what? Researchers in Berlin, this is from the Economic Times, they have successfully reduced blood pressure in rats by 40% without any major side effects to, respiratory or heart rate. Heart rate was what they actually lowered. It was the respiratory problems and other side effects that could occur from, reducing your blood pressure. But anyway, so they've created this device that you can implant, and they've done it in rats, and it worked perfectly, and they think that they can just scale it right up to human beings. Now, that doesn't mean that they're going to be able to do it next week. There's you have to go through other trials, and you have to scale it up to human, but the concept works, the thing works. What it does is it's electrodes that wrap around the nerve that, basically goes to your heart and respiratory system, and then it stimulates it in a way as to sort of, calm your heart down and say, hey, buddy, calm down, it's all right. It actually works. Now, it does take surgery for this to be put in. So first they would try to give you a pill, because that would be a little easier on your body than having a scalpel cut into your back. But if that doesn't work for those few people that, taking medication does not really work, they now have a device. Well, we soon will have a device that they can implant into our bodies to regulate our blood pressure. Transhumanism is coming, ladies and gentlemen. Transhumanism is coming. And speaking of, this is from UT Dallas News Center, right? University of Texas at Dallas combined their research with the University of Tokyo, and they have created, check this out. I'm just going to read this because this is so amazing. It's a little bit over my head. So listen to this. Researchers from the University of Texas, Dallas, University of Tokyo have created electronic devices that become soft when implanted inside the body and can deploy to grip objects such as tissues, nerves, blood vessels. So they put this like film inside your body and then they can activate it remotely and tell it to grab things, right? Now, why would you want that? Simple. You can put sensors on it so that the sensors can then monitor something. So like you slip it into your abdomen in a non-intrusive way. They don't have to like really cut you open. They can just put a little slit and they tuck that film because it's like a film. And you can wrap it, and you can roll it up and what have you. And they tuck it into you. And then they activate it remotely and they tell it, all right, now deploy around your liver. Or deploy around your, intestines or whatever. And then with the sensors built into it, it can then start giving them feedback and start giving them information. This is incredible. Continuing reading, scientists and physicians have been trying to put electronics in the body for a while now, but one of the problems is that the stiffness of common electronics is not compatible with biological tissue. You need a device to be stiff at room temperature so the surgeons can implant it, but then it needs to be soft and flexible enough to wrap around 3D objects so that the body can behave the way that it should. It's just incredible. This is just the coolest stuff ever. They're calling it Shape Memory Polymers, developed by Dr. Walter Voigt, assistant professor of material science, engineering, mechanical engineering, and author of the paper. The paper is going to be published in Advanced Materials, and it's being heralded as the first demonstration of transistor that can change shape and maintain their electronic properties after being implanted in the body. This is incredible. Transhumanism is coming. The ability for us to use science to enhance our bodies and live longer and be healthier and be smarter and be stronger and repair ourselves after we've been damaged is coming, and it's coming in our lifetimes. This is the reason why I'm a singularityist. This is the reason why I believe the technological singularity is coming, because our advances, particularly our advances in medical science, is happening so fast. I'm having to talk faster to try to keep up with them. And finally, keeping with the medical theme in this segment, are you gluten intolerant? That's very interesting. When you go to the National Foundation for Celiac Awareness website, you realize that 18 million Americans claim that they're gluten intolerant. That's an insane number. Because less than 1% of the population has celiac disease, something that actually needs gluten-free food. Celiac disease is an actual medical condition that actually needs gluten-free diet. Now, other people have seen that and they've gone, hey, I've got that too, which is extremely dangerous, and you should not do that. You should not pretend to have diseases that you do not have, and let me explain why. If you believe that you have celiac disease, that is a serious, serious disease that causes damage to your intestines and can one day kill you. And just eating a gluten-free diet is not treatment enough. That celiac disease is still eating away at your intestines, killing you. Do not pretend to have a disease if you don't have it. Now, to everybody else that does not have celiac disease, that claims that they need gluten-free food, well, guess what, buddy? They ran Jessica I'm having a hard time pronouncing her name, Jessica Bezakarski, a gastroenterologist from Monash University, ran, are you ready for this? A double-blind, placebo-controlled study and found that patients who self-identified themselves as gluten intolerant and needing gluten-free diets were lying to themselves, and or natural health practitioners lied to them and told them to not eat gluten. Don't listen to the chiropractors. Don't listen to Mike Adams, the health ranger dumbass. Listen to the doctors. And if you think you have celiac disease, go get it tested. That is serious business. But if you just think that, oh, I'm just bothered by gluten, you are deluding yourself. Science says so.
Grandfather's here.
Can't you tell me I'm sick? He'll pinch my cheek. I hate that.
Maybe he won't.
Hey, how's the sick? Huh? I brought you a special present.
What is it?
It was the book my father used to read to me when I was sick, and I used to read it to your father. And today I'm going to read it to you. The Princess Bride. The main square of Florence City was filled to hear the announcement of Prince Humperdinck's bride-to-be.
Princess Buttercup!
It comes to this. If you tell me I must marry you in 10 days, please believe I will be dead by morning.
Hear this now. I will always come.
How can you be sure?
This is true love.
The Princess Bride.
Moving forward on the People's Radio, I've got this report in front of me, and I just can't even believe it. I can't even believe it. Speaking of a false sense of belief, you have these organic food supporters that believe that organic food is healthier and more nutritious for you than genetically modified food. This is nonsense. This is beyond nonsense. I don't know where to begin. Even in the words of the great Norman Borlaug, greatest agricultural scientist to ever live, a man who was personally responsible for feeding over 2 billion people, even he said there is absolutely no scientific evidence to show that organic food is superior or more nutritious for you. All it is it's just more expensive and more destructive to the environment. I cannot say this enough. Organic food is more destructive to the environment. Organic farmers use pesticides also. Organic farmers use sulfur, lots and lots of sulfur. Organic farmers use tons of cow manure. Where do you think that cow manure comes from? It is a scientific fact. They've done the studies. Cow farms, cattle ranches are extremely destructive to the environment, and they release a lot of methane. The cattle is destructive to the environment. It tramples on the natural ecosystem, and it's just... Now, look, I'm not telling everybody to just abandon meat, stop eating meat. No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is that we have to move forward in a responsible way when it comes to our agriculture, and we can't just go all gung-ho. Now, this stuff has been analyzed by agricultural scientists, and they say it is absolutely impossible for the whole world to go organic. If we did, 2 billion people would have to starve. You're looking at, in order to go more organic, right, you are increasing the need for your compost, your even as Norman Borlaug put it, even if you use all of the manure available, even if you used all human feces available, even if you were to find a way to capture all, animal manure that's available, such as the chicken scat that they'll use sometimes, even if you were to use all of it, we still would not have enough to produce all organic food, right? Like, here's the thing. The next time you're talking to an organic food supporter, ask them where they're going to get all of their nitrogen from. Just ask them, because, we're looking at like 100 million metric tons of nitrogen that we use for our food supply every single year. Where are they going to get 100 million metric tons of nitrogen? You look them dead in the eye and you demand that they tell you how this is possible, how they're going to do it. I don't want to bash organic food, because on the small scale it works. If you want to farm like the Middle Ages in your backyard, God bless you. Have fun. Do it. That's fantastic. If you want to have a superstitious belief that farming food the way that we used to 500 years ago is somehow healthier for you than the ways that we have learned to farm food today, then do it. You can run your own farm however you want, but when we're talking about the logistics of feeding the world's population, modern industrial farming techniques is by far superior in every way to organic farming. The crop yields are better. It's less damaging to the environment because you don't have to open up a new cattle ranch every single time you increase production. I've heard organic food supporters say that they're against monoculture. Well, we discovered crop rotation, 100 years ago. It's not even worth it. But I've got this disturbs me. They're paying people in Mao $5 to sign $5 per person to sign a thing saying that they don't support GMOs. This is ridiculous. It's an advertising campaign. Listen to me. Every single organism on this planet is genetically modified. It's called sexual reproduction. You are genetically modified. Now, if Farmer John does artificial selection in his field, then that's considered A-okay. It's random guesswork trying to get the results that he wants, right? But if a scientist in a lab creates genetically modified food that we know, down to the gene, the entire genome, we know all of the genes that are in it, we know exactly how it works because we test this food for 15 years before it gets anywhere near human trials for consumption. Don't listen to the lies. Don't listen to people who tell you that genetically modified food is dangerous or it's unhealthy. It is the best food we can possibly make. You tell those organic supporters that if they believe that we haven't learned anything new about agriculture over the past 500 years, they are mentally deficient. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous. Organic farming is more damaging for the environment. Modern industrial farming is how we can grow huge amounts of food to feed billions of people without having to cut down all of the rainforests on planet Earth to just have cattle there producing manure and methane. Moving on. Speaking of morons, let's talk about Congress. Now, I support this bill 100%. Check this out. This is a source whose name will not be named. Fox News. Hate them. Right-wing propaganda. Anyway, check this out. Bill would ban lawmakers, those are the people in Congress, from flying first class using taxpayer dollars. Right now, your congressional representative is flying around, jet-setting here and there and doing this and that, and I'm going to meet these people, and I'm going to go talk to these people, and they're using your tax dollars to pay for their plane ticket. Well, they all like to fly first class. Wouldn't we all like to fly first class? I know I would. I cannot believe that my tax dollars go to Congress flying first class. But check this out. A bipartisan group of lawmakers has introduced legislation aimed at preventing members of Congress from flying first class. The bill is actually titled, "If Our Military Has to Fly Coach, Then So Should Congress Act." Brilliant. I love it. I love the name of it. And I love what it is. It was introduced by Representatives Paul Gozer, Republican. We don't like Republicans much. Paul Raul Ruse, a Democrat from California. John Barrow, a Democrat from Georgia, of all places. And Walter Jones, another Republican from North Carolina. But this is bipartisan. 2 Democrats, 2 Republicans. They both believe it. They both accept it. What could be wrong with this? Look, what could be wrong with this? I mean, the only thing that I can think that I don't like is it's the title. If our military has to fly coach, then why should? Well, if we all have to fly coach, then why should, Congress get to fly first class? I mean, how many times have you flown first class? I haven't flown first class. I don't know. I guess I'd like to do it sometime, but I budget money. That's just what I do. What can I say? I budget money. So when they say you pay so much more to be in the exact same airplane, to go to the exact same place, I start to go all cross-eyed, and I'm like, I don't want to waste money. All right, this is from io9.com. A key reason why U.S. politicians do not understand science. Are you ready? Folks, we talk about this on the program all the time. We currently have a dysfunctional Congress. Your government, your federal government, does not understand science. I watch C-SPAN so that you don't have to. And what I've noticed is that every time they have one of these science budget committees or what have you, the politicians are completely just idiots. And they don't understand what they're talking about, and they don't understand science. Let me give you an example. Recently they had a prosthetic that they took to House Budget Committee. And one of these stupid politicians was like, I don't understand. What does it do? Like, what does it do? It repairs our soldiers that have lost arms on the battlefield. It repairs our citizens who have lost an arm. Don't get me angry. My blood pressure might go up, and then I may need a German implant to keep my blood pressure down. Every time I talk about Congress, I start to think, yeah, maybe I need that German implant to keep my blood pressure down. I can't wait to become transhuman. I can't wait because, I want to be like a Vulcan. I want my logic to overtake my emotions. But emotions are kind of fun, though, when you think about it. Like when you have the emotions of love, empathy, and all that good stuff. Anyway, so check this out. This is from io9.com. In 1995... Congressional Republicans shut down. It's always the damn Republicans. Why are Republicans anti-science? You would think that Republicans would want science so that they could build a bigger nuclear bomb to blow us all up or something. Or you would think they would want more science so that they can dig more coal out of the ground faster so that they can kill us all faster. You would think Republicans would want to learn how to... Whatever, I'm sick of it. In 1995, congressional Republicans shut down the Office of Technology Assessment. I mean, listen to it. Office of Technology Assessment, how could you be against that? Just the name itself sounds so freaking cool. For 23 years, I'm still quoting the article. For 23 years, this agency had published reports that provided legislators with nonpartisan analysis of science and technology issues. Holy crap! What a novel idea! What a novel idea! You actually have a government agency whose job it is to look at science and technology and then give a report to our politicians so that they can know what they're talking about when they talk about science. What a novel idea. Wouldn't it be amazing if we had that today? Would it not be cool if we had something like that today? It's quite obvious when you think about it, right? It's quite obvious. Let's finish the article. Last week, Representative Rush Holt, a Democrat from New Jersey, yay, go Democrats, tried to reopen the agency with minimum funding. He failed. The legislation to the Legislative Branch Appropriations Act that would have provided just $2.5 million for the Office of Technology Assessment. That's an incredibly small amount of money when we're talking about, government, the U.S. government spending money. Our budget is $3 trillion per year, so $2.5 million would not even have been a drop in the bucket. It would have been less than a drop, right? would have provided $2.5 million for the office technology assessment, was defeated in the House 248 to 164. Oh my God. That is 217 Republicans. 217 Republicans voted against having an agency in your government that would advise them on science and technology. You might want to ask yourself why they would do such a thing. Why would they do such a thing? This is the reason why I am a technocrat. I believe that the scientists and the engineers should be in charge. I believe that the college professors should be in charge. I believe that the people who know what they're doing should be in charge. I can't say it enough. I will forever say it until I die. I don't want to vote in whoever won the popularity contest in high school, whoever smiled the biggest and kissed the most babies. I don't want that guy. I don't want the politician who has learned to lie the best. I don't want that. I want the smart guy. I want the guy who actually knows what's going on. I want the guy who knows what he's talking about. I want a guy who can actually see things coming in the future because he is educated enough to know what's going on in the now. You know why they voted that down. You know as well as I know why they voted that down, because one of the very first things that office would do is come back with a report saying climate change is totally real and you guys are totally screwing this up. And they would have been like, oh man, crap. Now we have another group telling us about climate change, and now we have to spend more millions of dollars to the Heartland Institute to create another fake website to come up with more fake arguments against climate change so that we can win a PR war in the climate change battle. Well, climate change is not PR. It is science. It is your environment. It is where you live. It is your life. They are destroying, and they are intentionally ignoring it. They, right there, you're seeing the Republicans do not want to be informed about science. They don't want to know. They don't care. Your Congress has been infected with millionaires, Wall Street millionaires that do not care about science and technology. They only care about their portfolio. And if the sea oceans rise, they don't care because they will just retreat to their multi-million-dollar mansions and leave you to drown. Perhaps you're a listener who thinks that climate change is a bit overstated. And maybe Bill Nye the Science Guy is fear-mongering and scaremongering. Well, since the whole Bill Nye interview happened, 2 new studies have been released in Science and Geophysical Research Letters. And they have found out that a major section of West Antarctica's massive ice sheet, right? We're talking about several very large glaciers, are now melting rapidly. And the conclusion of these studies is that it is now pretty much unstoppable. They are melting so fast, there's really nothing we can do to save them. If we was to stop everything right now, if we was to just shut down the factories, if we was to shut down all of the cars, if we was to just stop everything and everybody worldwide, if everybody was to just stop, it still wouldn't be enough. Well, you might be thinking to yourself, oh, well, whatever. Who cares about glaciers? You know, whatever. Who cares? Well, I mean, I live in South Florida. And since moving here, the ocean has actually risen almost 6 inches. And they have this street in Miami that now floods every single week. And just a few years ago, that never happened. That street had been there for a long time, right? That street was there way before I got here. And they have businesses there. It's an established business district with actual shops, and pedestrians walk it and bike it and drive it with cars. And now every single week, that street floods because climate change actually has risen our oceans. And you're not going to hear about it on the mainstream media. They're not going to tell you. When the hurricane comes in, that's death and destruction. Death and destruction sells newspapers. Death and destruction gives them nice pictures to put on the front page so that you'll buy. That sells. But climate change, we're looking at death and destruction on a scale the likes of which we have never seen before. We're looking at like 90% of the human race going away. But they won't talk about it because it won't happen in their lifetimes. They don't care. Human beings are very selfish creatures. Back to the Antarctica glaciers. What happens when these glaciers melt? According to the studies, when those glaciers melt, the sea ocean will rise 4 to 13 feet. 4 to 13 feet. So if 6 inches causes a street in Miami to start flooding every single week, what's 4 feet going to do? That's a lot more than 6 inches. You know, we've really got to start looking at climate change. We really need to start pressuring our politicians to do something. We can't just turn off all the factories tomorrow, and knowing that is what makes the problem so severe. There is no magical button or magical law that we can just make everybody stop using cars and stop using factories and all that. So what we need to do is we need to start enacting legislation and enacting social change to get people to understand the problem so that we can all start to live in a more renewable way. And that's why Organizing for Humanity was formed. Organizing for Humanity was formed in order to rebuild human infrastructure, specifically food and energy production, in a more renewable way. And electric cars cannot get here fast enough because, I mean, right now we're pumping out so much emissions. And China, we talked about it on the program last week, China is building a real-time regulation grid so that they can monitor their industries, so that they can, basically monitor who is the major polluter and who needs to cut back. America really needs to think about doing something like that. We need to start taxing carbon, but more than that, we need to turn to our scientists and engineers to help us fix this problem. Now, I know there's a lot of religious people out there that believe that we cannot change the planet, but we already are. That street in Miami is flooding. We are changing the planet. Right off the coast here where I live, we're seeing huge decimation of coral populations because the ocean is not only becoming warmer, it's becoming more acidic. I heard a climatologist give an analogy the other day, and it was a great analogy. We are basically very slowly turning the oceans into soda pop. And the fish and the coral and everything cannot survive that. And if the life in the ocean goes, then the carbon sequestration goes. So then we have a runaway greenhouse effect, which means we turn into the planet Venus. That means we're going away. We're going to die. Congratulations, Republicans. Thank you so very much. But hey, just remember, there was a congressman that once existed in the year 2014, and his portfolio was really large and really big. What a comforting thought that will be 1,000,000 years from now, when alien archaeologists swing by our solar system and just see a burned out crisp as the third planet around the soul. And finally, we're gonna talk here about let's. I don't know if I've got enough time to get into it, but a lot of people want to know what's going on with ULA versus SpaceX. And let me just explain this in very common language. Because I'm not a rocket scientist, and if there are rocket scientists that listen to this program, God bless you. Keep up the good work. But basically what is happening is we have the old congressional way of doing things, which was just old government too expensive, too slow, too dumb way of building rockets. And they even got lazy doing that. They stopped hiring American workers to do some of the main components. They started ordering the main components from other places. So you have ULA, United Launch Alliance, which, that's your government regulated, NASA regulated rocket right there. And it's got Russian engines on it. The main engines on the booster were Russian engines. And one of the most frightening things that I heard was the ULA rep that went to go talk to a congressional hearing to defend his whole business model. He was asked the question, can we make those Russian engines? And he did not say yes. His answer was, we went over there to Russia and we saw that they were doing things with manufacturing techniques that we can't do. That's not a yes. What the hell? What the hell happened? Okay, so the old guys, the old fuddy-duddy guys, the United Launch Alliance, they screwed the pooch. They messed up the business model. It's extremely expensive, and they don't even make their own engines. They use Russian engines. Well, now Russia has declared, you can't even have our engines anymore because of the whole Ukraine thing. Russia has snubbed their nose up, and they've said they are pulling out of the International Space Station by 2020. Which is a major, major thing because we were civil to each other and we were cooperative to each other even through the Cold War while in space. Our astronauts and their cosmonauts were friendly and on good friendly terms even through the Cold War. But now Putin is cranking crazy up to 11, and now Russia is saying that they are going to pull out of the International Space Station. I mean, that's kind of serious, man. So now we can't even launch our own. Here's the best part. There's a lot to unpack here. The ULA Atlas rocket is basically what launches the majority of our spy satellites. Uh-oh! So our spy satellites were put up by Russian engines. So Putin's all like, why am I going to allow my engines to put up spy satellites? So they've cut us off, right? So now the Atlas is dead. That thing is dead because we can't manufacture those engines, and those engines are no longer able for us to buy them, right? So meanwhile, what do we have? We have SpaceX. We have the Falcon 9, and soon we will have the Falcon Heavy later this year. The Falcon 9 has a perfect safety record. The Falcon 9 can take over this workload. This is an American-built rocket by American workers. It is an American private firm. It's for-profit. Now, I'm not really all gung-ho for for-profit corporations, but their way of innovating and creating a rocket is faster and more streamlined than the old United Launch Alliance way of doing things. So, I'm very excited about how bringing in private industry is putting the old guys on their toes, and it's forcing them to innovate. And, I didn't want Putin to stop supplying engines to us, but I never thought that it was a good idea that we were using Russian engines in the first place. Should we not be making our own rockets and our own rocket engines? I mean, come on. That's my tax dollars going to Russia. Not to mention, currently, we don't even have the capability of sending our astronauts to space because our tax dollars is paying, I think it's $40 million per launch for our astronauts to hitch a ride on the Russian capsule to and from the space station. Think about that. But the Falcon 9 can pick up all the slack because the Falcon 9 is being designed so that it can be mass produced and launched a lot. And we're talking about like 12, 24 launches a year. And it's also being designed so that you can put a crew capsule on that sucker. So very soon, hopefully within the next 2 years, we're going to be able to launch American astronauts on top of an American-made rocket made right here in the good old US of A. And that way, if our tax dollars are going to launch, American astronauts on the top of it, well, then at least that money is going into the American economy and is going to pay for, American workers doing American work. That's how it should be, shouldn't it? Isn't that the space race? I mean, if you want to have the space race, if you want to have a technology race, you don't pay your competitor to make the technology for you. That's how you lose. Congress, they are the problems with this country. They've got to go. We got to vote them out. We got to get some scientists and engineers into Congress who actually know what they're doing and actually know how to innovate and how to get a handle back on our technology and our innovation. Otherwise, we really risk sliding back into, well, not first place, which is what we Americans pride ourselves to be. Thank you again for listening to The People's Radio.